Hey everyone, thanks for being here. It's me, Ari Dossett, Comrade Sheet. I'm your anthropologist and sociologist. Please hit the like button, share this video, no, this live stream. It's a live stream, not a video. Share this live stream, subscribe to the channel, become a member of the channel. Don't forget, you can donate the links below. Thank you very much. Also, if you wish to book a session with me, a one-on-one consultation, then check the fees and the instruction description box below. You can check my novels on Amazon, Barnes& Noble, Walmart search, where you can find them. You can find them almost every search engine online. And also, above all, I want you to pay close attention to this live stream. Take notes. Pray about it afterwards. And where this knowledge applies in your life, apply the knowledge to glorify the Heavenly Father. Thank you. But before I continue, how are you all doing today? Let me know. Let me see. Okay. You should be able to hear me clearly. Let me, just in case, let me check it on my phone, please, to see if the audio quality is correct. Oh, one moment. Yeah, the app is opening. Um, Hold on. Yes, I'm live, as you can see. Hold on. Hold on. Yes. Okay, good. You should be able to hear me perfectly well. Okay, good. So let's talk about this Lucy Letby case. And I'm going to share the screen anyway. But first, I want to explain what a controversy is, just so that we are on the same page over here. Let me share the screen. One moment. Okay. Is everything all right there? Okay, let me just go over here. Controversy. Let me enlarge this for you. What is a controversy? It's defined as a disagreement, typically when prolonged, public, and heated. Here's the origin of it from contra, contro, or contra, that's Latin for against, and vertere means to turn, and the past particle of vertere is verta or versus. So contra versus con controversy. That's how it is in English. Okay. Now, so you're against turning. That's really what it means. Against turning. Now, let me explain in common language what a controversy really is. Okay. We have the dictionary definition. I'm just going to explain it very briefly. What is a controversy? A controversy is when you have a public disagreement. So it's not something between you and your spouse, between you and your children, or between a few people in a village. A village is also public, but it's still very small. A controversy is a widespread disagreement in a population that's making people uncomfortable. Why? Because it's a topic that will reveal how strong or how weak the people are together. Okay, let me give an example. Let's say now you lost your car keys and your wife is complaining about you. Man, you always lose your car keys, blah, 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 and all of that. And you're so sloppy, this and that. So this is a whole argument. Is this a controversy? No, it's just a marital disagreement, even though it's a bit of a disagreement. I mean, just because your husband lost his car keys, okay, if you lose it over and over again, okay, you still have discussed it, you can just lash out like that. But anyway, that's not controversy. Let's say now there are two neighbors in a bit of fight against one another, and there are even guns used in the fight, and the neighbor gets scared. Is that a controversy? No, it's just a civil dispute that turned criminal, and now the police is involved. It's not a controversy. Okay? For example, let's say John is a drug dealer and John was arrested and he go to prison. But let's say the prison sentence is quite long, 20 years, even though the common charge for doing drugs is just 5 years. Now, there can be disagreement about that. Why the guy spent 20 years in prison sentence only 5? But it's not a controversy because everyone agrees he did the drugs, he sold drugs, he endangered the community, And in some countries, if you're a drug dealer, you get the death penalty. You're killed by the government. In this case, you will still be alive for 20 years to get out. People may disagree about the length of the sentence. Countries think it's a bit too long, but anyway, it's not a controversy because it's not like people are falling out about it. Family ties, broken divorce happen because of it. Okay. A controversy, as I mentioned before, is a public disagreement that threatens to wreck the community apart. Now, I already explained the difference in community and society. Both community and society has a population. Community is when people live together in an area, and because of that, out of necessity, out of realistic speaking, they form bonds together. That's a community. Or you have people at a distance with the same values or same interests forming a unit together. That's also a community. Society can be a bunch of communities together or just people in general that have to get along in some type of escape structure. So society and community are not the same. A controversy is a public disagreement in a community. However, it will spill over into society eventually because also other communities have to deal with it. Okay? So let me give an example of a controversy. Let's say now Kevin got convicted for rape. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison for rape. 10 years into his sentence, he's released. Charges dropped. Conviction overturned because it came out that the DNA sample that was found at the crime scene proved that he didn't do it. And they found out that there was CCTV footage out there that proved that Kevin was around. Now, if it's proven with actual proof that he's innocent, he should be released from prison. But now, think about it. The people who thought, oh, we caught the bad guy, we can move on, now they have to go through the whole process again. It could be re-traumatizing. Also, what was the prosecutor doing back then? That they had such a sloppy case. And if it was a sloppy case against Kevin, how come the case went through? How come the jury agreed to it? So now, the conviction overturned reveals that the criminal justice system is not perfect and that often there are people being convicted wrongly. But why does it keep happening? Because there's something wrong with the population. People don't want to face that. So in this case, this is a controversy because it forced people to face things nobody wants to face. Okay? So a controversy isn't like, okay, which presidential candidate are you voting for? That's not a controversy. Unless the presidential candidates, in this case, as it was during the 2024 election with Donald J. Trump versus Kamala Harris, unless one of them was a convicted felon, now it becomes a controversy. Because how the heck can you be, if you're a felon in the United States, there's so many restrictions you have to deal with, but you can run for president. How the heck is that even possible? So, and now you have someone who was a convicted felon in office. So that's a controversy. Now, when you look at the Lucy LETBY case, the case is one big controversy, at least how it became eventually. Now, before I dive in further, is it clear to you what a controversy is? Let me know in the live chat. Do you understand what a controversy is? Let me know. It's quite important for you to understand this. Let me know in the live chat, please. Oh, by the way, if you're driving right now, stay hands-free. Listen to the live stream while you're driving. And if that's too much for you, either close down the live stream and continue driving, or park your car and listen to the live stream. And if you have to keep driving, then watch your replay. Save on the road, please. Thank you very much. Now, I'm going to share some. Okay, should I do? Hold on a minute. Okay, let me. This is a Wikipedia page about the case also. Let me look at that. Lucy LETBY. One moment. Okay, so I'm going to read the Wikipedia page about the case. Then I'm going to read also some newspaper articles about the case too. Okay, so just so we read into the case a bit more. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, Lucy LETBY, born 4th January 1990, is a former British neonatal nurse who was convicted of the murders of 7 infants and attempted murders of 7 others between June 2015 and June 2016. LETBY came on investigation following a high number of unexpected infant deaths, which occurred at the neonatal unit of the Countess of Chester Hospital 3 years after she began working there. Okay, LETBY was charged in November 2020 with 7 counts of murder and 3 counts of attempted murder in relation to 17 babies. She pleaded not guilty. Prosecution evidence included LETBY's presence at a high number of deaths, 2 abnormal blood test results, and skin discoloration interpreted as diagnostic of insulin poisoning and air embolism, inconsistencies in medical records, her removal of nursing handover sheets from the hospital, and her behavior and communications, including handwritten notes, interpreted as a confession. In August 2023, she was found guilty on 7 counts of each uh, of murder and attempted murder. She found not guilty on 2 counts of attempted murder, and the jury could not reach a verdict on the remaining 6 counts. An attempted murder charge on which the jury failed to find a verdict was retried in July 2024. She pleaded not guilty and was convicted. LETBY was sentenced to life imprisonment with a whole life order. Management at the Countess of Chester Hospital were criticized for ignoring warnings about LETBY. The British government commissioned an independent statutory inquiry into the circumstances surrounding the deaths, which began its hearings in September 2024. LETBY has remained under investigation for further cases. Since the conclusion of her trials and the lifting of reporting restrictions, various experts have expressed doubt about the validity of her convictions due to contention over medical and statistical evidence, technical errors, and the lack of a clear motive. Medical professionals contested the diagnostics as not sufficient for criminal evidentiary use and implausible, arguing the autopsies indicated the infants had died of natural causes. 2 applications for permission to appeal have been rejected by the Court of Appeal. An application to the Criminal Case Review Commission and a new application to the Court of Appeal are pending. So, okay. Now she's in prison right now. This is her. So eventually, people are allowed to talk more about the case after the case was completed. And now there are various people who have doubts about her conviction. There are even people on YouTube campaigning for her, say she's innocent. You have also Free LETBY or Just for Lucy LETBY. So now there's a lot of people in Britain, even on the internet outside of Britain, who think this woman is innocent. Okay, now let's read further about this woman first, and then we're going to go to the. Actually, you know what? Better let's read the articles right now. This is Nursing Times. There's an article about her, and let's read it, shall we? Hold on. A former top nurse at the trust where Lucy LETBY carried out her crimes has said she believes the former neonatal nurse is innocent. Karen Rees, who was head of nursing at the Countess of Chester Hospital NHS Foundation Trust between 2015 and 2018, told the Sunday Times over the weekend about why she backs LETBY. This is a quote from her. I know that they say psychopaths are clever, but if she was acting, she deserves an Oscar because she was so convincing. Okay. LETBY, 35, has been convicted of murdering 7 babies and attempting to murder 7 more between June 2015 and June 2016 at the neonatal unit of Countess of Chester Hospital where she worked. When sentencing, Judge Mr. Justice Goss described LETBY as cruel and calculated and said she had a deep malevolence bordering on sadism, observing the lack of remorse the former nurse showed during the trial. As well as this, evidence heard at the Thirlwall inquiry, which is investigating the circumstances around the murder, suggests that LETBY was cold and lacking the expected attributes of a nurse. In a new interview, Ms. Rees told the Sunday Times that she strongly disagreed with the characterization of LETBY presented at the inquiry and during the court case. People say she's not emotional. Trust me, she is emotional. Okay? I know that they say psychopaths are clever, but if she was acting, she deserves an Oscar because she was so convincing. She was really hurt when she was told about the consultant's allegations because she thought they were friends, not just colleagues, and she could not understand why they were doing this to her. Miss Reese claimed that LETBY was frequently crying and distressed in weekly well-being meetings she was having with her after the initial accusations were leveled by consultants in 2016. The former head of nursing described LETBY as a quiet and normal then 28-year-old who went catatonic when under stress. She spoke of her personal distress at watching LETBY deal with the accusations against her, which were found to be true by a jury in 2023. Multiple requests by LETBY to appeal have been denied by the courts. Ms. Reese in 2024 told the Thorough inquiry that she initially felt that consultants who raised the alarm about LETBY were doing so because of a personal issue. However, she did not declare to the inquiry that she believed LETBY was innocent. Hmm. Well, this is a bit odd, isn't it? If you were subject to a legal inquiry, okay, and you felt that something was off with the inquiry done by the civil servants, you thought that they had a personal issue against the defendant. Okay, but why didn't you say back then that? Why did you declare back then that you think she was innocent? Why didn't you do that? I'm just saying it's a bit off, but okay, let's continue. In an interview with the Sunday Times this weekend, Ms. Reese said she felt that the consultants were not in a position to judge LETBY at the time. The one person that knows her nursing team is the manager of, or the manager or the team or the unit manager, not a consultant that visits a couple of times a week. Ms. Reese said. They know the strengths and weaknesses. I trust Lucy's ward manager when she looked me in the eye and said, LETBY's fantastic and that she's right by the book. She does everything right. This ward manager, Ariane Powell, denied giving LETBY faithful treatment during her own evidence to the thorough inquiry in October 2024. So the ward manager denies giving LETBY faithful treatment. The other claimed that she did receive faithful treatment by the same individual, so they contradict one another. Okay. Ms. Reese made a public statement in August of 23 when she said LETBY was convincing, calculated, that she had deceived her. Asked about this statement by the Sunday Times, Ms. Reese said she made it on the advice of her lawyers and that she regret doing so. Hold on a minute. So, okay, let's get this clear, okay? You're the head of okay, was she head of she was a top nurse at she was the head of the nursing. This is what she was. I want to find the right title. She was head of nursing. A local manager, you claim, spoke well of her, but local manager now is saying I didn't do that. And back then, you had complaints about the consultants, how they did the inquiry, but you didn't state that you think she was innocent. And now you made a statement. Now she made a statement claiming that that actually was not in the favor of the defendant. Okay, and now much later she's saying she regret doing so. Why, if you really thought this woman's innocent, why did you listen to your lawyer and make a statement that appeared like this other woman was guilty? I mean, let's read first. Let's go back to the statement over here. Ms. Reed made a public statement in August of 23 when she said the leg was convincing, calculated, and that she had deceived her. So you spoke in harmony with the conviction. Asked about the statement by the Sunday Times, Ms. Reese said she made it on advice of her lawyers and that she regret doing so. So now it's all on the lawyers. Why not say, I did it? I was wrong. The Sunday Times reported that Ms. Reese had always believed LETBY was innocent. If that's the case, then what would be the reason for a lawyer to advise you to get along with the conviction? Why do you need a lawyer to push you to do something like that? Either you change your mind and you realize, you know what, I was wrong, but you can't say I've always believed she was innocent, but back at the time you acted contrary to believing she was innocent, and now you have to be trustworthy afterwards. It doesn't add up. Okay. to the point that she never even asked LETBY if she had done it because she was so sure. If you believe someone is innocent, just ask them, did you do it? Straight up. If someone accuses, let's say one of my nephews of car theft, and I'm not convinced they did it, or I don't even I'm saying, yo, cousin, did you do that thing over there? If he tells me he didn't do it, and he can show me proof that he has an alibi, it's over. Well, I can't say, well, my cousin is guilty of stealing a car. I don't believe it, but you know what? I never asked them, and I never even tried to show that I don't believe it. I just thought, when my cousin is convicted in a court of law, later I make a statement saying, man, my cousin was always cunning, he was always weird, all of that. So I speak in a disfavor of my cousin who just been convicted or was on his way to conviction. And later I say, well, I always believe a cousin's innocent. Does it add up? No, it doesn't add up at all. Okay? Okay, so let's read further. The interview comes as LETBY's legal team has applied to the Criminal Cases Review Commission for the case to be reviewed as potential miscarriage of justice. Okay. Now, up until now, do you see where the controversy comes in? Contradicting statements, one attitude suddenly changes, and these were people close to the defendant. All right? Actually, they were close to the defendant, for the defendant was locked up. Okay, let's go further. This is an article from Wednesday, the 14th of May 2025 from The Guardian. Let's read it. The conviction of Lucy LETBY should be overturned. This article is it's more than a month old. Okay, good. When the former nurse was found guilty of murdering 7 babies and attempting to murder 7 others, a 1980s research paper was key to the prosecution's case. But the author of the paper himself believes there has been a miscarriage of justice, and so do other doctors. So, long story short, there was a research paper they've used in the case, and now the one who wrote that paper in the past thinks, hold on a minute, you used my research in this criminal case, but I don't think you use it the right way. So that's what comes out right now. And the other people also have the doubts about the case. Okay, let's continue. On 4th of February 2025, Lucy LETBY's barrister Mark McDonald convened a press conference at the Grand Baroque Westminster venue, 1 Great George Street. It became a landmark moment, the culmination of months in which a number of distinguished experts had spoken out to question the former nurse's convictions. The media were addressed for an hour by a Canadian medical professor, Dr. Shu Lee. He said that a panel of international experts disputed the professional prosecution's case that had led to LETBY being found guilty in 2 trials of murdering 7 babies at the Countess of Chester Hospital in 2015 and 2016, and attempting to murder 7 others. Okay, she was sentenced to 15 whole life orders, and the Court of Appeal unanimously refused her permission to appeal. Okay, so let's think about this for a moment. Before we refer to an article, think about this. All these experts doubting the convictions. The trial wasn't finished in a week. The trial's even delayed because we had a pandemic going on back then. Where were all these experts back then? Where were they? Where were they? I mean, shouldn't all these experts have spoken out while the trial's ongoing? Or shouldn't they have done so directly after the conviction? Okay, the time is a bit weird, but okay, let's continue. Okay. We did not find any murders, Lee said. In all cases, death or injury were due to natural causes or just bad medical care. Lee is one of the world's leading neonatologists. doctors who specialize in the medical science and care of premature babies. Before his retirement from clinical practice in 2021, he held senior leadership positions in Canada, headed up international collaborations, and conducted extensive research. His journey to becoming so involved in a criminal process pursuit in the provinces of Northwest England is a remarkable feature of the LETBY case. It springs from Lee being told after Lee was convicted that a medical research paper he authorized more than 30 years ago had been used as a basis for one of the prosecution's central allegations that LETBY killed babies by injecting air into their veins. Lee was dismayed, he told the Guardian, adding that the use of his paper was incorrect and a categorical error, and he was concerned LETBY may have been wrongly convicted. He agreed to give evidence to the Court of Appeals, but the judge dismissed it as irrelevant when they refused LETBY's application. He then committed to assembling a world-class panel who would fully assess the evidence. Lee's eminence meant that the peers he could call on comprise leading specialists in Canada, the United States, Japan, and Europe, including two distinguished UK-based consultants, Dr. Neera Modi, a preeminent neonatologist, and the renowned perinatal pathologist Dr. Martha Cohen. Lee flew across the Atlantic at his own expense to present their findings at the bombshell press conference. He explained the acute medical problems some of the premature babies had suffered and said the panel found no medical evidence to support malfeasance or deliberate harm, but they had identified so many problems with the baby's care in a unit that had inadequate numbers of appropriately trained staff. If this had happened in a hospital in Canada, Lee said bluntly, it would have been shut down. So this man is saying, listen, this hospital where these alleged murders happened of these babies, where this woman was not convicted for, the medical care of these babies, it was unacceptable. If such thing happened in Canada, the hospital would be shut down because it wouldn't be allowed. So, okay, let's continue further. The neonatal unit at the Countess of Chester Hospital was a small, cramped concrete facility built in 1971. NHS neonatal units are classified for staffing and expertise at three different levels, according to how premature the babies are. Because the earlier they are born, short of the 40-week full term of pregnancy, the more severe their physical underdevelopment and medical difficulties tend to be. In 2015, the Chester unit was level 2, which meant it accepted very premature babies, born of 27 weeks gestation, including those with high medical dependency need and requiring intensive care. The agonizing series of premature babies dying on the unit began in June 2015 with 3 infants, anonymized at LETBY's trial as babies A, C, and D. It was recognized as a crisis a year later when 2 of the 3 premature triplets died, babies O and P. That prompted the hospital's executive to downgrade the unit to level 1, so it could only admit babies of more than 32 weeks gestation. Central to understanding the LETBY case is that across almost a decade of inquiries and investigations since then into the collapses and deaths of the babies on the unit, the criminal trials, the verdicts that the babies were deliberately harmed are the exception. Before Cheshire Police became involved in May 2017, there were extensive examinations and reviews. Within the hospital by the neonatal clinic, lead Dr. Stephen Brary, lead for Children's Services, Dr. Rafi Jayaram, and others, postmortems by consultant pathologists at Liverpool's Alder Hey Children's Hospital, a coroner's inquest for baby A review of the unit by the Royal College of Pediatrics and Child Health, then further reviews by the pathologist and independent consultant neonatologist. None found that the babies had been deliberately harmed. Now, after LETBY's trials, Lee's international panel wholly disagrees with the prosecution case, as do many UK-based specialists, including consultant neonatologist Svilena Dimitrova, and Neil Aiton, who were also providing expert reports on individual babies for McDonald's. As you see, there's a lot going on over here. Okay. In 2015-2016, the Countess of Chester Hospital's neonatal unit was care, caring for more premature babies with more acute medical needs than in previous periods and was struggling with staff shortages. Quite important. Look at this. So you have a hospital unit that's to look after premature born babies, and they had a shortage of staff. Now that's a big problem, especially because you're dealing with premature babies who are born premature. But the precise cause of individual collapses had not all been explained by the doctors or postmortem experts. Berry and Jafferon had noted that LETBY had been at work when babies collapsed. Then in June 2016, after the two triplets died when she was on shift, they became more vocal about their suspicions. They had no evidence of any wrongdoing, nor of any deliberate harm caused to the babies. Jafferon then discovered the 1989 article that Lee had authored with another doctor, Keith Tenswell. Jairam later said that he and other doctors had begun to wonder about skin discolorations observed on three of the babies: A, whom he had attended; B and M, who had collapses and survived. Jairam said he did some research and came across the possibility of something called an air embolism. He then found an old academic paper written in the 1980s. Not as come to Now that it's come to feature so prominently in the prosecution case, and Lee has appeared in person to respond so empathetically, the paper itself looks strangely modest. 3 and a bit page of a medical journal, the author's full names not even given, S.K. Lee and A.K. Transwell, entitled Pulmonary Vascular Air Embolism in the Newborn. It was a study of babies' fatal collapses caused by air in the bloodstream. Based on that paper, LETBY would be accused of injecting air into babies' veins, although the study also comprised babies undergoing high-pressure ventilation. In some, particularly the more premature, the lungs leaked, so air entered the bloodstream. Then, when it traveled to the heart, it blocked the circulation. The key observation that the prosecution's medical expert would later cite as a guide to air embolism in the Chester babies is a single sentence, a description of skin color changes. All right. One moment. So let me get it straight. A retrial was denied, but people still insisted. Well, that's a good thing to keep insisting. If you will really believe someone is innocent behind bars, and it's a bothers you, you may take action about it. So I'm glad they're doing all this effort. Okay, now let's continue. Okay. Blanching and migrating areas of cutaneous pallor were noted in several cases, and in one of our own case, we noted bright pink vessels against a generally cyanosed bluish-gray cutaneous background. Jayaron has said he found that description chilling because it matched the blotches observed on the Chester babies, including baby A. He began to raise the air embolism and the Lee and Tansville paper as possible evidence that LETBY was murdering the babies by injecting them with air. He first mentioned it to hospital executives on the 29th of June 2016, then to the RCP CH review team when they arrived 2 months later. The RCP CH team did not find the accusation against LETBY compelling. They found that the unit was not compliant with professional standards for level 2. It had too few consultants who were doing only 2 ward rounds per week, and junior doctors were reluctant to call on them. The hospital's medical director, Ian Harvey, commissioned Dr. Jane Houghton, a consultant neonatologist at London's Royal Free Hospital, to review the individual babies' collapses based on their medical records. Houghton found no evidence of deliberate harm, but many instances of suboptimal care. Harvey explicitly mentioned to Houghton that the consultants had suggested air embolism. She replied that there were insufficient details in records, and it would probably have been impossible to record in anything but real time the precise cause of some collapses, including if there were any sinister cause. But she emphasized she had concerns about the unit's response to babies' medical conditions, referring to subtle signs of being missed or not escalated or responded to. There may have been an inherent system or leadership problem, she said. So, in short, there were signs that the hospital wasn't functioning properly and there was neglect in addressing it. Now, Harvey also asked Dr. Joe McPartland, one of the older Hay pathologists, to review the postmortems and asked her about air embolism. McPartland replied in January 2017 regarding the baby A that there was no evidence of air embolism. Okay. Brary and Jaron, in particular, did not accept the adequacy of the reviews. They maintained their accusation against LETBY and began to press hospital executives to involve the police. The executives were reluctant as there was no evidence against LETBY, only the consultant's suspicion due to the statistical coincidence of her having been on shift. Nobody ever saw her harm a baby or commit any of the facts, injecting babies with air or lacing two feeding bags with insulin, of which she would later be accused and found guilty. And there's never been any tangible forensic evidence of her doing so. She was well respected as a committed young nurse who had taken intensive care qualifications and would volunteer for extra work and overtime when the unit was stretched. Senior staff believed that this explained why she was often on shift for the sickest babies. Now, I want you guys to understand the following. In this case, I'm not saying Lucy LETBY is innocent. I'm not saying she's guilty. That's not the question we're answering this live stream. We're just looking at this controversy over here. Let me get it straight. You have a young nurse who's qualified and she's hardworking and she even does over hours to help out the unit. And one of the main reasons why there was a suspicion on her because she was on the shift when the babies collapsed. But there were other medical doctors on the shift, right? Okay. If she was running extra hours for the hospital, then yeah, she was in many cases on the hospital. So likely that explains why she was often there even babies collapsed. Okay, I'm not saying that that's the explanation. If she did it, she did it. If she didn't do it, she didn't do it. We're not answering whether she's guilty or not. We're just pointing here that they had very little to accuse her of. There wasn't much convincing evidence. Okay? Now let's continue. Eventually, the executives agreed to the consultant's pressure to contact the police. So the executives were not convinced, but the consultants kept insisting on it, so they gave in. Minutes of a meeting on the 12th of May 2017 showed that the assistant chief constable, Darren Mortland, did not believe there were grounds to investigate, as there was no specific allegation at this point to suggest a criminal act. He also pointed out that the Cheshire Constabulary are not clinical experts. So, yeah, they were not experts in this field, so they couldn't make a decision whether or not it's time to prosecute or not because there was no grounds for a criminal act was committed. Now, Mortland said officers would though meet with Javram on the 5th of May 2017 as he had sent an email raising concerns. At that meeting, Jayaram told the police that unusual rashes were seen on some babies and he raised the possibility of air embolism. 3 days later, on 8th of May 2017, Cheshire Police announced a criminal investigation. Paul Hughes, who became the senior investigating officer, was at the meeting with Jayaram. In Jayaram's first formal police statement on the 8th of September 2017, he referred to his research that found air embolism and that Lee and Tensel and the Lee and Tensel paper. He gave a very precise description of this coloration he said he had seen on baby A that tallied closely with the paper, fitting patches of pink areas on the background of bluish gray skin. Jerome said in his statement that the strange blotching, which didn't fit with anything I'd ever seen before in my 27 years as a pediatrician, also appeared on babies B and M. The paper described what I had seen on the babies, Jerome said. It would emerge at the trial when he was challenged by LETBY's then barrister, Benjamin Myers KC, that Jerome had never noted that skin discoloration on baby A before. He did not include such a description in the medical notes he wrote on the evening baby A died in June 2015, nor in his evidence to the coroner's inquest. Myers accused Javram of making up this discoloration 2.5 years after baby A died to fit with the Lee and Tansel description, yet read since. Now, so that was a neonatal unit. Let's go further. Jaram replied that he had not realized its clinical significance at the time. You're suggesting I didn't see it? No, absolutely I saw it. And I have no reason to confabulate why I might have seen it, he said. As a professional, as a pediatrician of 30 years, as a doctor of 32 years, if my character was such that I would make things up, I would hope that friends, colleagues, managers, nurses, patients, parents would have picked that up well before now. Jerem has also faced intense scrutiny and criticism for another key allegation made against LETBY, that he came upon her after she had dislodged baby K's breathing tube in February 2016. However, he did not mention that to anybody for months afterwards. This allegation led to a charge of attempted murder, for which the jury in the first trial could not agree a verdict. LETBY was convicted in the retrial, whose jury was told she was by then a convicted serial killer. Asked why he waited so long to mention it, Jerem said he wasn't courageous enough. It's been suggested to me that I just made that up, which is, I'll refute. It is nonsense. There's no reason why I would. But hold on a minute. Hold on a minute, y'all. So you mean to tell me that you noticed odd behavior that could harm a baby at the hospital, and you didn't mention it because you were not courageous? Huh? Okay. Okay, let's keep reading. Okay. Serious further criticism has been made recently of his evidence. He said at the baby K retrial that when the baby deteriorated, LETBY did not call for assistance. But in a May 2017 email only disclosed to LETBY's lawyers last September after she was convicted, recently reported by the Unheard website, Jam wrote to his fellow doctor, staff nurse LETBY at incubator and called Dr. Jaram to inform of low detonations. Last week, the Conservative Member of Parliament, David Davis, who has spoken in Parliament arguing that LETBY has suffered a clear miscarriage of justice, made a formal complaint to the Cheshire Police, calling on them to investigate Jaram for potential perjury. Asked about this evidence by The Guardian, Jaram declined to comment. Okay. The case even went to the British Parliament, to politics. Wow. When a criminal case becomes political, you know it reveals something off about the community. Okay? Okay, let's continue. Key to understand how Cheshire Police came to construct a case against LETBY and the allegation of injecting with air that no previous expert found is that one doctor, Davy Evans, had a very significant role. Hughes' team took him on within weeks after Evans read about the investigation being launched and put himself forward, emailing a contact at the National Crime Agency. Sounds like my kind of case. Evans was a consultant pediatrician with experience of neonatology at Singleton Hospital, Swansea, who retired in 2009. After that, he worked prolifically, giving medical opinions as an expert witness in the adversarial battlegrounds of the courts. Concerns have been raised about his objectivity. Expert witnesses must restrict their evidence to an impartial analysis in their own particular specialism, not advocate for the side instructing them. But Evans has talked repeatedly about having won all his cases except one. He explained this to the Guardian last year, arguing it is proof that he is impartial as partisan witnesses don't last long. Evans began suggesting the injection of air as a possibility to Cheshire Police from an early stage. He ultimately gave as his medical opinion for the police and prosecution that 5 babies, A, D, E, I, and O, had been killed by air embolism due to the injection of air into their veins. He also referred to the Lee and Tencel paper to support his opinion, in particular that it explained the skin discoloration seen on some of the babies. Myers suggested to Evans at the trial that the police must have told him about suspicions of air embolism, putting that in his mind. Evans said that it was completely untrue. The first person I know of to raise the issue of air embolus in this particular series of cases was me, Evans said. Evans' reputation was seriously undermined by an extraordinary intervention in the middle of the trial. A senior Court of Appeal judge, Mr. Justice Jackson, issued profound criticism of Evans' integrity as an expert witness in a separate case and took the step of emailing the LETBY trial judge, Mr. Justice Gross, to inform him. Jackson was vitriolic in his ruling, writing that Evans made no effort to provide a balanced opinion, and his approach amounts to a breach of proper professional conduct. He appeared to have wanted a particular outcome in the case, Jackson said, and sought to achieve it by working out an explanation. Jackson said the report included tendentious and partisan expressions of opinion that are outside Dr. Evans' professional competence and have no place in a reputable expert report. Okay? Myers argued throughout the LETBY trial that Evans was not impartial and had been doing what Jackson found in the other case, coming up with ideas and theories to support the prosecution case that LETBY harmed the babies. Evans consistently denied that. Myers then applied for all of Evans' evidence to be disregarded. Goss refused, ruling instead that the jury should be told about Jackson's criticisms and decide themselves how credible they found Evans' medical opinions. During those exchanges, Evans said that the opinion Jackson criticized in the other case had only been a letter to a solicitor that he had not expected to go before court. Okay? Myers also applied for the allegation of embolism to be thrown out for lacking evidence. Goss refused the application too. He acknowledged that the prosecution's expert radiologists and pathologists did not find any diagnostic medical evidence of air embolism, but he said that this crucial question, the medical opinions that air had been injected into the baby's veins, based in part on the skin discolorations linked to the Lee and Tencel paper, should also be left to the jury. The other method of murder alleged by the prosecution, which Evans also provided as an opinion, was that LETBY injected air into baby stomachs via the nasogastric feeding tubes connected to their noses. Many experts since the trial have dismissed and even ridiculed that as a means of harm. Several clinicians told The Guardian last year that it was not practically feasible, and even if it was true, the air would leak out or the baby would burp or vomit it up or pass it as wind. When The Guardian put their criticisms to Evans, he said his opinion had been that injecting air or fluid into the stomach destabilized the babies and was not directly responsible for any of the deaths. McDonald argues this is a change of opinion from the trial when Evans said that excessive air in the stomach could cause a baby to stop breathing. The Court of Appeal judgment states air via nasogastric tube as a mechanism of murder for 3 babies, C, I, and P. Evans has since changed his opinion on baby C, saying he now firmly believes air embolism was the cause, and has sent a new report to the Cheshire Police. They have refused to provide it to McDonald's. All right. Replying to questions from The Guardian, Evans stood firmly by his opinions on air embolism. He has pointed out that he was cross-examined on them, supported by other doctors in the trial, and that his opinions were also considered by the Court of Appeals. Evans said he has been in good standing with the General Medical Council since the start of his career in 1971, and began giving evidence as an expert witness in 1988. He said he flagged up air embolism as a cause of several babies' collapse in his preliminary 2017 reports and only read the T and Tencel paper later. The allegation of misuse and misemptying Professor Lee's 1989 paper is erroneous. He said, I had reached a diagnosis of air embolus long before rediscovering Lee and Tencel publication. Lee was quite unaware of the LETBY case until her lawyers contacted him in October 2023. He was immediately troubled to discover how his research had been used. To the Court of Appeal, Lee carefully explained air embolism and emphasized that only one skin color change identified in his paper, pink blood vessels against a bluish background, was diagnostic. He said none of the rashes described as having been on the Chester babies confirmed to that. They had many possible medical causes, including hypoxia and disputed Evans opinions. But the judges, while recognized that Lee was an eminent neonatologist, dismissed his testimony as irrelevant and inadmissible. It was irrelevant, they said, because the prosecution's medical witnesses had pointed to the baby's rashes as consistent with air embolism, not diagnostic of it. And Lee's evidence was inadmissible because he had directly been available for the trial, so LETBY's legal team should have contacted him then, which is true. I mean, if they're using a medical paper if you're a lawyer and using a medical paper to convict your client, isn't it possible to check, okay, to use on this paper, are the authors of this paper still alive? Oh, if they are alive, hey, let me call them. So the Court of Appeals is right about this. Why didn't the lawyers of Lucy LETBY reach out to this man earlier? How come it's far after the trial the man found out his paper was used in a criminal case? All right, so let's continue. The judges also upheld God's rulings that left the question of embolism and Evans' credibility to the jury. Lee told The Guardian, Lucy's lawyers told me that she had exhausted all avenues of appeal and would remain in jail for the rest of her life. That troubled me great because no one should be convicted based on wrong medical evidence. He then agreed to assemble his panel of the best experts in the world to examine the evidence. With a neonatologist colleague in Toronto, Dr. Kui Zhang, Lee also researched air embolism specifically caused by injecting air into veins. Lee explains that his 1989 paper did not distinguish between cases where air entered the circulation from the high pressure ventilation and those where air was injected into the veins. There was no research specifically into air embolism caused by air injections into the veins. This was not pointed out at the trial or to the Court of Appeals, Lee said. It was, he said, a categorical error to use this paper to allege air was injected into the baby's veins. In the new scientific paper published in December 2024, Lee and Zhao found that no patchy skin discoloration, such as observed on the Chester babies, appeared from air injected into infants' veins. This new evidence, he says. It was striking that when the trials ended in July last year, amid a storm of publicity, a growing number of experts immediately spoke out in disagreement, even outrage, at the evidence that led to LETBY's convictions. The government had rapidly set up a public inquiry chaired by the Court of Appeal Judge Lady Justice Thurwell to learn lessons from how a serial killer had apparently been operating in an NHS hospital unit. Before it started, 24 distinguished specialists wrote to the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, and Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood, calling for the public inquiry to be paused or widened, to grasp the opportunity to consider whether the legal system may have produced a miscarriage of justice. But Thurwell and the inquiry lawyers refused to engage with that possibility. In her introductory speech, Thurwell dismissed the mounting concerns as noise. She had to focus on the inquiry's terms of reference and could not set about reviewing the convictions, she said. The Court of Appeals has done that with a very clear result. The conviction stands. The convictions are unsafe and should be overturned as soon as possible, Dr. Shu Li. For 6 months until the hearings finished in March, the inquiry proceeded on that basis, an unchallengeable assumption that the prosecution case was right and that the truth was only established once the police became involved. The scale and weight of the expert challenge to the criminal trial have not been acknowledged by Thurwell and their lawyers, by Streeting, Mahmoud, or any other government minister. The legal and political establishments appear to have struggled to recognize that the concerns over LETBY's convictions are far from conspiracy theory or internet noise. It is unprecedented that so large a group of experts with such distinguished reputations have so rapidly, publicly, and comprehensively spoken out to dispute convictions for murder. The article's almost done. Be patient. The lawyers representing the parents of the Chester babies at the Thurwell inquiry have criticized the raising of concerns and said they are increasing the family's distress. They have dismissed the possibility that LETBY will be the victim of miscarriage of justice and don't accept that Lee's panel work or his new research may undermine the safety of the convictions. On 8th of March, Clayton Blackwell, Casey, representing Harvey and 3 other hospital executives at the time, applied for Turwell to pause writing her report, arguing that the purpose of a public inquiry to fully and fearlessly establish the truth would otherwise not be fulfilled. Blackwell's stance signaled that the executives, who had been relentlessly criticized at the inquiry for commissioning the external reviews and not going to the police sooner, questioned the safety of the convictions. It was the final day, and the first time anybody involved said he had said the experts' concerns should be taken seriously. Streeting and Turwell refused the application. On 3rd of April, McDonald submitted to the Criminal Case Review Commission the full report, 698 pages, compiled by Lee's panel on all the babies. They found no evidence that any were deliberately harmed and rejected the prosecution case of air embolism via air or air via the nasogastric tube. The panel set out detailed findings on the baby's vulnerable medical conditions, their opinions on the cause of the collapses, and alleged a catalog of poor medical practice by the doctors on the unit. 7 other leading experts also produced a separate report from McDonald, which rejects key prosecuting evidence that led to LETBY being convicted of attempting to murder 2 babies by poisoning them with insulin. The convictions are unsafe and should be overturned as soon as possible, Lee says. Of the parents, he says the ordeal of the infants' families is very sad and unfortunate, and we all feel for them. However, fair justice is paramount. Some experts who also believe the convictions are unsafe are known to have taken issue with some medical detail in the panel's findings. While agreeing with the conclusions, that there's no evidence of deliberate harm to any of the babies. The CCRC found of a 1993 Royal Commission report into a series of catastrophic miscarriage of justice, including the Birmingham 6, is a legal system lost chance for convicted people whose appeal have been turned down. It decides where applications raise sufficiently serious questions about convictions for a case to be referred back to the Court of Appeal. The CCRC has had its funding severely cut in recent years, while miscarriage of justice applications have dramatically increased. So the organization is taking a long time to even consider them. The Commission can only refer cases back to the Court of Appeal on the narrow ground there is a realistic possibility the judges may overturn a conviction. So it has to take into account judges' reluctance to accept new expert opinion, however eminent. Turwell continues to work on the report. She appears certain to recommend that in future, if any accusations are made of wrongdoing by people in healthcare settings, they must immediately be referred to the police. A spokesperson for the inquiry said it is not for a public inquiry to examine criminal convictions. That's the role of the Criminal Cases Review Commission and the Court of Appeal. A government spokesperson said we should all remember what the families and those affected by this appealing case are going through and keep them in our thoughts. A criminal trial has taken place and Lucy LETBY was found guilty. There's an ongoing independent process to review cases through the Criminal Case Review Commission. Meanwhile, LETBY remains in prison, convicted as Britain's worst ever child serial killer. She has always maintained her innocence. Okay. Now, I know this was a long article, but we had to go through it. Why? Because this article shows you how many issues there are with this case, how many doubts there are from experts about this case, and how reluctant the government is to consider these complaints. Now, one thing that's mentioned in the article is that the families of the babies that died, they went through a lot. There was a criminal case. The woman was found guilty, and now there's a review ongoing. It seems like they want to emphasize that we want to get this over it. They don't want to keep reminding of this. But as you read also in the article, miscarriage of justice is not uncommon in Britain. They have a whole establishment right now, very small, not the big one. They have an establishment right now that is a last resort to review cases. But the fun of it has been cut down, even though the applications are increasing. So there's signs miscarriage of justice is a common thing in Britain. There's signs of it. So in this Lucy LETBY case, it is shown already that, okay, there's a possibility that the healthcare system in Britain was insufficient and it caused harm to the babies. If that's the case, it's actually incompetence of the hospital and also incompetence from the government for regulating the hospitals. If that's the case, it would undermine the trust of the public in the British government. Okay? You don't want that. If it's the case, though, that there's more behind the scenes and this woman was framed, if that comes out that Lucy Levy was framed for this, then it becomes a case of people don't trust the legal system anymore. They don't trust the police anymore, nor the judge anymore. That means more people take matters in their own hands. You get escalation of violence over Britain. And Britain's already coping with a lot of street violence over there. So there's another contentious part about this case. So what I tell you, this case is a controversy. And it has international proportions right now. All right. Now let's read further. Okay. Now this is an article from the 1st of July. Let's go. Let's read. 3 ex-bosses of Lucy LETBY arrested on suspicion of gross negligence manslaughter. Okay. Hold on. Let me make this bigger. 3 former senior staff at the hospital where nurse Lucy LETBY murdered 7 babies and attempted to kill 7 others have been arrested on suspicion of gross negligence manslaughter. They worked on the senior leadership team at the Countess of Chester Hospital between 2015 and 2016 and were billed after being questioned on Monday. The arrest came after an investigation into potential corporate manslaughter at the hospital was opened in 2023 and then widened in March this year to include gross negligence manslaughter. LETBY, 35, from Hereford, is serving 15 whole life prison sentences of targeting babies at the hospital's neonatal unit between June 2015 and June 2016. She was convicted of making 2 attempts to kill one of the babies. Cheshire police said the arrest did not impact on the convictions of Lucy LETBY for multiple offenses of murder and attempted murder. Deputy Paul Hughes said the corporate manslaughter element of the investigation focused on the senior leadership of the hospital and its decision making to determine whether any criminality has taken place concerning the response to the increased levels of fatalities. He said gross negligence manslaughter was a separate offense and focused on the grossly negligent action or inaction of individuals. Corporate manslaughter can carry an unlimited fine for an organization, but no jail sentence for an individual, whereas gross negligence manslaughter can result in a life sentence for a person convicted of it. The 3 people arrested have not been named by police, in line with a normal police procedure. Cheshire police said it was also carrying out a separate investigation into deaths and non-fatal collapses of babies in Chester and in the Liverpool Women's Hospital, where LETBY trained for periods going back to 2012. Hughes said there were no set timelines for the manslaughter investigations. LETBY has maintained her innocence, and her barrister, Mark MacDonald, submitted an application to the Criminal Case Review Commission earlier this year. The application included the findings of 40 medical experts who agreed to re-examine the evidence here at the trial, included LETBY had not harmed any babies. The CCRC, which has the power to refer cases back to the Court of Appeal, said it was reviewing the applications and could give no timescale on when a decision could be reached. Mr. MacDonald said the news of the arrest had come at a very sensitive time in his client's case. Despite this concerns many have raised will not go away, and we will continue to publicly discuss them. He added that internationally renowned experts have concluded that no babies were murdered and called for a new public inquiry into failings in neonatal and pediatric care at the Countess of Chester. Last month, former Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt called for an urgent re-examination of LETBY's case due to what he called serious and credible questions raised by the expert panel. His Conservative Party colleague, Sir Dave Davis, has also been supportive of attempts to have LETBY's case looked at again. But lawyers for the families of LETBY's victims described the experts panel conclusion as full of analytical holes and a rehash of the defense case. A public inquiry into the circumstances around LETBY's offending is also due to publish its findings in early 2026. thorough inquiry heard evidence from the senior leadership team at the hospital about when concerns were raised about a rise in the deaths of babies at the neonatal unit. So let's get this clear. Let's get it clear over here. So this woman has been convicted for murdering babies. Okay. Much later, they're doing investigations into whether the hospital was negligent. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe in Britain do things a bit different, but if there's a case ongoing, someone's accused of murdering babies at your hospital, shouldn't it be investigated at the same time where it was not her killing babies, just neglected, whether the hospital just not functioning, all that? There were concerns that it may be uh, low quality medical care that led to the babies dying. That was mentioned by some people. Why isn't that investigated back then? I mean, the case is just weird. Oh, and things not finished yet. Let's continue. Okay. Prosecutor consider further charge against LETBY. This one, the 2nd of July 2005. That's today. Prosecutors are considering bringing further charge against Lucy LETBY following the death and non-fatal collapse of babies at the hospital where she worked. The Crown Prosecution Service, CPS, confirmed it had received evidence from Cheshire Police regarding the alleged incidents at the Counts of Chester Hospital and Liverpool Women's Hospital. Former neonatal nurse LETBY, 35, is serving 15 life sentences for murdering 7 babies and attempting to murder 7 others, one of whom on 2 occasions at the Counts of Chester Hospital 2015-2016. Chester Police had been investigating other incidents going back to 2012, covering LETBY's career and training in Liverpool. The force said it has submitted a full file of evidence to the CPS for charging advice. Cheshire Police said the file regarded its ongoing investigation into deaths and non-fatal collapse of babies at the neonatal units of both the Counts of Chester Hospital and the Liverpool Women's Hospital as part of Operation Hummingbird. Operation Hummingbird was set up after the hospital bosses contacted the force in May 2017 to investigate an unexplained rise in incidents in the Counts of Chester neonatal unit. The number and exact nature of the potential new offense has not been revealed and is not known how long it would take the CPS to decide whether to bring new charges. A CPS spokesperson said, "We will now carefully consider the evidence to determine whether any further criminal charges should be brought. As always, we will make that decision independently based on the evidence and in line with our legal test. Before charging a suspect, prosecutors have to be satisfied they have sufficient evidence for a realistic prospect of conviction." The Daily Mail reports that the government's most senior lawyers, including Director of Public Prosecution Stephen Parkinson and Attorney General Lord Hermer, will be involved in the decision-making process. LETBY, originally from Hereford, has always maintained her innocence. She has lost 2 separate bids to challenge her conviction at the Court of Appeal. Earlier this year, her legal team, okay, now we already went through that, so they want to bring more charge to this woman. Now, let's read this article for the latest article of today also. Lucy LETBY alleged to have murdered and harmed more babies. Okay? So, okay. Is there anything new in here? Let me see. No, there's not really new here, but I want you all to. Okay, so we've gone through all these articles. We know a lot about the case, also the doubt about it. What we could do now is look into the background of this woman as far as we can, based on what's available about it. So let's go to the Wikipedia page, just to form a little profile of her. Okay. Lucy LETBY was born on the 4th of January 1990 in Hereford, the only child of a furniture salesman and an accountant's clerk. LETBY was educated at St. James Church of England Primary School, Ilestone School, and Hereford Sixth Form College. A friend who knew her since secondary school told the BBC that LETBY wanted to become a neonatal nurse because she'd had a difficult birth herself and she was very grateful being alive to the nurses who helped save her life. LETBY received her education in nursing at the University of Chester, where she also worked as a student nurse during her 3 years of training, carrying out placements at Liverpool's Women's Hospital and the Counts of Chester Hospital. LETBY initially failed her final year student placement, but passed a retrieval placement after requesting a new assessor. In 2011, Nicola Lightfoot, her assessor, reported she was lacking in clinical and medical knowledge and needed more experience in picking up on nonverbal signs of anxiety and stress from parents. In 2024 inquiry, Lightfoot said she had found LETBY to be cold. LETBY was the first member of her family to study at the university and graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Nursing, with a specialty in child nursing in September 2011. She completed a placement course at the Liverpool Women's Hospital by December 2011. Okay, LETBY was the first member of family to study at the university and graduated with a bachelor's. Okay, I'll tell you why this is important later. Let's go further. LETBY got an appointment as a registered nurse at the Countess of Chester Hospital and started working in the neonatal unit from 2nd January 2012. She lived a normal life, living in several rented apartments until she bought a house near the hospital, a 20-minute walking distance from a ward in 2016. Okay, so let me read further. Then I'm going to summarize. In a 2013 staff profile, she said that she was responsible for caring for a wide range of babies requiring various levels of support, that she enjoyed seeing them progress and supporting their families. LETBY also took part in a campaign to raise funds for a new neonatal unit at the hospital. She told others that she found non-intensive care work boring. LETBY completed a specialization course in neonatal caring in March 2014. She went for another training placement at Liverpool Women's Hospital in early 2015 and qualified to work with infants in intensive care. Her time there came on investigation after conviction. Okay, now, based on all of this, so let's form the profile now. You have a woman, she was the only child for parents. Her mother had a difficult time giving birth, so she survived, thank God, by the nurse who helped at the childbirth. Her family is not that, her relatives around are not that highly educated. She was the first one to attend in graduate university. Okay, so there was a breakthrough for her, and she's a woman also. Then she lived in various rented apartments. So I don't want to I don't want to speculate, but if you have sufficient cash coming in, you might as well buy a house immediately. Or you can stay long term in the same flat. It could be she was renting a flat and suddenly the flat was closing down because the one the most she said she moved to another one. But it could be various explanations why she was going from flat to flat. But it does seem like she was struggling financially. But I'm not sure about that. But anyway, she was moving from place to place, and finally she settled down, purchasing a house. The same year the suspicion rose against her. Well, actually, from that point on, suspicion was raised and later turned on her. So while she was working after graduation, she kept studying further while working, and she kept specializing even more. And she even wanted the hospital to expand. Okay, now just think about it. If this woman comes from a background of people who are not that highly educated, now maybe those people never were interested in studying, just found a job immediately, or maybe a lot of her relatives are illiterate, we don't know, but she is one of the few who got a high education. I don't know about you, but when I read things like this, I automatically think, hold on a minute. If you're one of the few of your environment who got a high education, wouldn't that make the rest look bad? What have they been doing all the time? Maybe. Could lead to jealousy and envy or invidia. That too. And also, one thing I noticed about this case, and if I miss on this, just call me out, then I'm wrong. Okay? I'm a human being doing research. I use spirit abilities where I can also. Doesn't mean I can never feel anything. All that my father can never feel. Okay, so if I'm wrong, correct me. But during this Lucy LETBY case, I never saw any footage nor any article from any of her friends, family, or any of the people close involved with her that stood up for her defense. If I'm wrong in this, if those footage exist and I'm wrong, I missed on it. You had people coming out against her or throwing doubt on her, but the people actually saying, no, man, she can have to do this, actually standing firm for her, where are they? That's a bit weird. And if someone's convicted and you're sure they're innocent, and this whole international team willing now to push for her to be released, wouldn't you, as friends or family, join that team and be vocal about it on social media everywhere? So I sense a lack of support from those that she grew up with and those that are around her. That's what I'm noticing over here. Okay, let's read further. Okay. In July 2013, okay, hold on. In July 2013, LETBY and a more senior nurse set the infusion rate for a newborn morphine at 10 times the correct amount, leading to a suspension from administering controlled drugs by the unit's deputy ward manager. LETBY was upset by the decision, was requested to undergo extra training. Her suspension was lifted a week later after she complained to the unit manager who had been on leave during the incident. LETBY told colleagues the suspension was an over-escalation, which the deputy ward manager disputed. In 2015, she qualified to work with infants in intensive care. And in April 2016, she administered antibiotics to an infant that was not prescribed them, which she miscalculated as a minor error. She was reassigned by the ward manager from night shifts to day shifts. In June 2016, Stephen Berry, a late neonatologist, asked management to remove LETBY from clinical duties pending an investigation on her conduct. LETBY was transferred to the patient experience team in 2016 and later to the risk and patient safety office, working there until her arrest in 2018. Now, okay, there are a few things that are a bit off over here. So apparently, she made some errors during her job that could have been fatal for the, or could have been harmful or even fatal for the patient. And there were some issues ongoing. Okay? And here you read that someone said that nobody had any concerns about the practice. Really? Nobody had any concerns about the practice, but you had these incidents happening? Okay. I don't know about you, but if a nurse at the hospital made an error twice, made two errors, which could have gone very badly for a patient, and there was she was put on hold once, she was transferred from department to department. Wouldn't you at least think maybe this woman is not even qualified to work as a nurse, or maybe should put her on leave for a moment? Shouldn't the management at the hospital think, you know what? We have to re-examine this nurse, whether she's even fit to work here, because these type of mistakes are unnecessary. You know what I mean? Now, again, I'm not on either side saying Luis LETBY is innocent or Luis LETBY is guilty. But let's say, for argument's sake, that this woman by accident injected air and it caused the baby to die. If that's the case, that means she was making a lot of errors. That means she shouldn't have even been working there. That means her superiors should have fired her a long time ago. But even then, she's still to blame for doing. She still will go to prison for because she should be doing her work better. But even if that's the case, it's still the issue of what were the people around her doing. Look, I'm an anthropologist and I'm a sociologist. And the fact this case became political shows you that more is ongoing just the killing of a few babies. And someone says over here, one in the comments says, during a practicum, she needed more experience to pick up signs of distress from parents. Made me think others picked up on her interactions with people were off. Okay, thank you for mentioning this, big pinky chump chilla. Thanks for mentioning this. I almost overlooked that comment. I was distressed by it too. Hold on a minute. If you want to work in the medical field, one thing I can tell, the medical field is quite strict. They have to be dealing with people's health, especially if you're dealing with the care concerning children. They have to be strict on you. How can you not be sensitive to signs of distress from parents? How can you lack that competence and they let you pass? Okay, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm too harsh. Or maybe because I'm not a medical expert, maybe because I'm not in medical field to say, Rashid, you don't know what you're talking about. But listen, if you are entrusted the care of children, you should have at least the basic empathy towards both the children you're taking care of and the parents of the children, and you should at least have the feeling to pick up distress from them. If you don't have that competence, I'm sorry, but I don't trust you in this unit. You could be a nurse with adults or with other fields, but not with children. Hell no, I would. You with me, you're fired immediately. Because if you lack the social and empathetic skill to recognize bloodlines from the parents, that means your interaction's off. Okay, how are you going to discuss the health issue of a child with the parents or the caretakers, but you're not good in picking up body language, or you don't have the empathetic skills to communicate with them? I can be wrong, guys, but according to me, this woman should have never even had that job to begin with. You get me? Now, I won't go so far to say she shouldn't even be involved in medical field altogether, but if you're dealing with children, you better have the empathetic skills towards the children and the parents. If you have any lack in that, that should be a red line right over there. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't. So there were incidents where she made mistakes. And listen, and only some of these mistakes are now on the Wikipedia article with references. There may have been more mistakes. And okay, let's go back to read this over here because this is important. Okay. In July 2013, LETBY and a more senior nurse set the infusion rate for a newborn's morphine at 10 times the correct amount, leading to a suspension from the administering controlled drugs by the unit's deputy ward manager. 10 times the correct amount? A newborn needed morphine, give 10 times the correct amount? She was suspended. Okay, LETBY was upset by the decision and was requested to undergo extra training. Her suspension was lifted a week later. Whoa. After she complained to the unit manager who had been on leave during the incident. LETBY told colleagues that the situation was an over-escalation, which the deputy ward manager disputed. Hold on a minute. Wow. A newborn, a baby, came out of mother's womb, just new on the world, needed morphine. I mean, you have measurements in the hospital. You have ways to measure how much morphine there is. How can you, by mistake, inject 10 times the amount of morphine? 2 times the amount, okay, 3 times, 4 times the amount, whoa. I mean, if this the liquid you want to put into the baby, 2 times the amounts like this, 3 times like this, 4 times like this, 10 times? She was suspended and she had to go undergo training. She complained to a senior at the hospital who was on leave. And a week later, the suspension was overturned. Hold on a minute. The individual she complained to was on leave. She should have complained to the ones who were at work. Why complain to the one who's on leave? And after the complaint, she's reinstated. Wait, should there not be an investigation going on how this could have happened? 1 week suspension only? Shouldn't both her and the other nurse both go to a medical board to face a trial? You're not talking about a grown man, a grown woman whose body may be able to deal with such an error. You're dealing with a small baby over here. I'm telling you, that hospital should have been shut down and put under investigation from that moment on. It should have been. Okay, let's read again. Okay, let's go further. In 2015, she qualified to work in infants intensive care, and in April of 16, she administered antibiotics to an infant that was not prescribed them, where she misclassified as a minor error. Hold on a minute. Don't you get are there no medical files of the patients over there? And don't you go to the medical file and do your check before you put something in a patient's body? This case, you're dealing with children, in this case, a baby. A minor error, no, errors are unacceptable. No errors. It's a minor error. Giving antibiotics to, even if it wasn't harmful to the baby, you just put something in a baby was not prescribed to. Where was the manager? Where were the people above her to deal with this? Okay, listen. The whole case stinks. Oh, by the way, can you guys hear me? Because my Wi-Fi is acting up a little bit. Can you all hear me? Let me know. Can you all hear me well? Okay, that's good. I'm sorry to say, but this whole case stinks, y'all. You know what I mean? From all sides, the case stinks. The management of the hospital was questionable. The nurse's career itself seems to be questionable right now. I mean, if you say that you almost died as a baby yourself, but that nurse helped you to be born well, and now you want to become a nurse too, that's a big motivation. You shouldn't even want to make any errors. You listen. If 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 you are emotionally invested in your job because you care about the children so much, because you yourself you almost died while your mother gave birth, and you say because nurse helped your mom, you're born well, and you're so glad to be alive, that is an intense intrinsic motivation. You wouldn't even want to make any errors. You'd be very hard on yourself, think, oh my God, what I do? 10 times of morphine, I'm sorry, this and that. You'll be hard on yourself saying, okay, I'll undergo any disciplinary measures from the medical board. I'll do it. You wouldn't brush off anytime you make an error like that. So, and this is off. But apart from that, what about the people nearby? It's very late that some medical doctors begin to say, listen, we need to look into this. Why are so many infants dying over here? Why does this keep happening? The alarm was sounded a bit too late, to be frank. Look, what we can say so far about this case is that there's been failures in NHS. There's been failings in also the police investigation. There's been failings also with the defense of this woman. Why didn't contact the authors if they're still alive of that article? There's also been failings during at the hospital itself when the nurse was malfunctioning. So there are failures from all sides over here. And it seems like, and I can be wrong, I'm not accusing anyone, but it seems like the public doesn't want to admit these failures. It's like they just want someone to go down and take the hit for all of this, and then they all continue like nobody has to face the fact there's so many failures. Look, if babies die because of failures in the community, that is a collective crime that needs to be dealt with. But the thing is, what if these type of failures are common throughout Britain? What if such failures are common throughout the NHS? What if these type of things are common all over the country? And what if this scandal comes out, there's going to be scandals erupting everywhere. And before you know it, there's scandals all over the country about the healthcare failing in Britain. That may lead to a lot of public unrest. And remember, Britain already decreased in reputation because of this Brexit mania, where they crashed out of the European Union with a lot of financial, economic downwards consequence for Britain afterwards. I'm just being real with you over here. Look at the whole Brexit mania that happened. It was very exhausting. So if also comes out that the healthcare is quite negligent, you can see the unrest are coming up in the streets already. So it seems like there's no interest in reviewing this case because now all the blame is on Lucy LETBY. And now that so many doubts have raised about conviction, now they arrest more people. It seems like, oh man, you see, Lucy LETBY is guilty, but we also look at the other perpetrators. Don't worry about it. It seems like people don't want this case actually reviewed. It seems like people feel like there's a big scandal coming out because of this that people don't want to deal with. Now, look, if the nurse, in this case Lucy LETBY, if she was neglectful and it led to a lot of babies dying, she should be in prison. Simple as that. If she did it on purpose, lock her up for life. Simple as that. Who in the right mind wants to harm babies, y'all? Are you kidding me? But just in case she was not responsible whatsoever for these babies dying and of just neglectful behavior at the hospital, in this case, not only the NHS will need to apologize to the public, but the legal system of Britain itself now is questionable, because that means that the courthouse went along with a witch hunt just to cover up scandals going on in the country. And if that comes out, y'all, it's going to be a ruin for Britain internally, complete ruin. It seems like they want people to keep the trust in the British authorities, especially the British legal system. And this case is controversial because it may shatter that trust people have in the kind of still have in the British legal system. Maybe a lot of the British people don't have the trust in the British legal system. Maybe they do. It needs to be researched, but this case shows you that there's a lot at stake over here. Now, why did I do this case? Because I want you to understand the following. In the world, it does not matter whether you're innocent or guilty. Once there is a conflict in the community, the society doesn't want to deal with community issues. So society will want to just get over it. So if there are enough people point the finger at you, that is a charge in itself. Now, you still need to have the prosecutor make an official charge legally. But even if there's no legal charge against you, if many people point the finger at you, that is a community charge against you. That means that you are the focus now of people's unrest. And that means people want you to take the fall. If people get what they want, they'll feel relief, the unrest out of them, and they continue life. If no action taken against you, people can feel rejected and hurt, unrest will increase, and people may turn on one another. You have more domestic violence and more crimes in the country. So just like in ancient times, when a lot of people point the finger at you, at some point the authorities will step in with an investigation, and often, unfortunately, they will side with the public against you. They may not be able to lock you up based on the charge from the public, but they may find something about you that's questionable, bring it into the public sphere, and that will lead to your conviction. That's how you have people being wrongly convicted worldwide, y'all. Not everyone who's convicted is innocent. There are people who actually did crime and they're in prison, rightfully so. But the reason why wrongful convictions often happens because the authorities want to calm the public down. The public doesn't care about whether you're innocent or guilty. They're upset. They just want an outlet, and You better be the outlet, because if you talk back, they're going to feel more hurt and injured. Now they're going to lose it. That is fallen mankind. That is fallen mankind, y'all. Simple as that. Straight up, that is fallen mankind. So do you understand now why I tell you all on this channel, you need to walk by faith, you need to walk in the power of God? God forbid if one day many people can point a finger at you over and over again. Before you know, there's a community charge against you. And whether or not it becomes a legal charge, at some point you're going to face difficulties and danger in your life, because a lot of people have a bad focus on you. The police and the court system is to keep public violence or the violence from the community in check. But they cannot always do that. They have limited resources. There are times they either have to dismiss a case because dealing with the case will bring too much unrest, or they have to side with the public one way or the other. I'm just being realistic how these things go. Again, there's a review going on, and people campaigning for her case to be overturned. I know what's going to happen. I personally don't think, and that's just my estimation, that she will ever be released from prison. At least not in the first few years. But hey, I can be wrong. But one thing this case does show is that there's a lot of negligence going on there in Britain, y'all. And this negligence needs to be admitted. But because people don't want to admit it, because once you admit it, you need to acknowledge that something needs to be done about it. So once you admit it, you need to acknowledge something needs to be done about it, and you need to deal with it. And it's just like a lot of people in Britain don't want to deal with this. That's how it seems like. If I'm wrong, just correct me, because I don't know everything. What I want you to learn from this is the following. The public doesn't care whether you're innocent or guilty. Once there's a charge on you by the community, if it turns to a legal charge, be assured you are going to pay somehow. Even if you're acquitted from all charges by the judge later on, the fact that it's a legal charge against you, that'll be used against you the rest of your life. Can you prevent community charges? No. But you should be ahead of them. Okay, you should be ahead of them. Be ahead of these things as much as possible, y'all. That's why you need to use your spirit abilities to be ahead of all these things. I'm telling you. Because don't think you can't be next. Christ never told you that weapons against you will not be formed. Just with the weapons will not prosper. Now, if this woman, Lucy LETBY, is guilty of actually intentionally harming these babies, let her die in prison, y'all. Let the rest of life be in prison and die over there. If it was negligence on her part, give her some prison time. Yes, let her be released later on. If she was set up, my God, Britain, you as a nation, you're in trouble, y'all, for real. But anyway, so understand this: the public doesn't care about your innocence nor your whether you're guilty or not. They care about having an outlet for whatever unrest they have. You could be a criminal selling drugs, beat people out, doing all this crime for long, and people know about it and you just look the other way. They don't want to hear about it. If the crimes you're committing aren't affecting bothering them, and will not will say, well, so be it. We don't want to bother with it. But if what you're doing is making them look bad and it embarrasses them, now people care. Or what if you don't even have to be a criminal? What if you were the victim of crime? But the fact is, the only way you end up victimized is because the people around you neglected you. Now, you coming out as a victim, you've been victimized, reveals that the community did this to you because the community was neglectful. In this case, it will make the people look bad. Do they want to look bad? No. So now they may turn on you instead of people that harmed you. Because the thing is, those people could only harm you because there's a group allowed it to happen. If the perpetrator only had access towards you, or the perpetrator only was able to do that towards you because people let it happen, they don't want this to come out. They want to put all the blame on you, or they want to frame something or to get rid of you. That's how some people end up missing and they never found again. All right? So that's why the best thing to do if you're innocent, just say I didn't do it. I'm innocent. Just say it openly. And if people don't want to hear it, listen. Let them talk to your lawyer, and you don't want to let them do the case. If they insist you're guilty, and they have no proofs on them. So I'm telling you, if you're accused of something, call for your lawyer always when dealing with the world. Don't think, oh, I'm innocent. I will work with the police. All of that. No, call your lawyer. I'm telling you. Just call a lawyer. I'm telling you. Listen, if there's a community charge, if people are upset out there and tension increase in the community, and now they arrested you, that means that they decided to put a legal charge on you. That means there was a community charge against you already. Maybe there was no community charge in relationship to whatever crime happened. You may have nothing to do with the crime. Maybe there were a lot of people who didn't like you, or maybe you're an individual that's not considered relevant. And because of that, now that they need someone to take the fall, you're an you're easy candidate. If ever a legal charge is brought against you, it is because it was a community charge first. They go hand in hand. Legal charges without the community charge before are not is not going to work out well. It may backfire severely on the court system, and they want to prevent that as much as possible. So, do you understand now why I address this case in this live stream, and why it's important to always be ahead of community charges? Is this clear now? Let me know in the live chat. Let me know. Amen. Someone sent me a donation. Thank you very much for the donation. Thank you very much, Maria. Much appreciated. The rest, feel free to donate to in the links below. Be generous. Thank you very much. You really helped me out with this ministry. Thank you. All right. Are there further questions about this topic? Let me know in the live chat. Are there further questions about this topic? Let me know. Just remember, even if this woman is innocent, her being innocent is irrelevant right now. This case revealed gross negligence in British society when it comes to healthcare, also when it comes to the legal system. So if she's found to be innocent, it's even going to get worse. And guess what? A lot of people are going to blame her for it instead of looking around them and saying, why aren't we as a community doing better? So she's toast anyway. Whether she actually did it, then she rightfully should remain in prison for the rest of her life, or she's innocent and now she's going to be the face that reminds people of the scandal of Britain. So she's toast anyway. The best scenario for her is to come to Christ, become a believer, but even then, she'll still have to bear some of the consequences of this scandal. If she is guilty, guess what? She will be forgiven by the Father. She is forgiven by the Father. She will take the forgiveness from God. But guess what? A lot of people will not forgive her. The government will not forgive her. And she'll still have to bear the consequence of what she did for the rest of her life. The Apostle Paul was a terrorist hunting down to kill believers before he became a believer. After he was born again, became a believer himself, there was still consequences he had to go through. So just because you come to Christ doesn't mean all the consequences of your wrongdoing before are cancelled. You may be prison time may be removed. You may be, even if you're released from prison, there's still going to be some consequences to deal with. And let's say you're wrongly convicted and you come to Christ. You have to admit that there were warning symptoms you missed. As I told you before, no tragedy happens nor falls on the earth, and no misfortune can happen without warning symptoms out of time. This woman somewhere felt warning symptoms and she ignored them and stayed at the job. So if she is wrongly convicted and she's innocent, somewhere she also let it happen to her, because why did she pay attention to warning symptoms and intuition? Things like this don't just happen out of the blue. Oh, out of the blue, the accused goes on. No, there were warning symptoms. She could have left the job or work at another hospital, do something. All right? But anyway, thank you all for being here. Again, keep agreeing with Christ. Stay alert, please. I may do another live stream within a few hours from now because I'm in the mood for the live streams today. So be ready for it. Thanks for being here. Again, please don't the links below. If you haven't done so yet, please do. Agree with Christ. Pay close attention. And I'll see you next live stream. God is good all the time. Amen.